Peace and blessings to the family. It is me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions and Boston community. Shout out to the Louisiana All-American Sports Network. This coming Friday, we're going to be broadcasting live from A.W. Mumford Stadium as the Southern Lab Kittens host the Madison Prep Chargers. Check it out on your local radio station for all my listeners and subscribers in Baton Rouge. Shout out to M Vision Photography and Video. And shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. We getting ready to get it on and popping in a minute. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, Jiddick. All right. Let's get it out the mud because I plan on being here for a good time, not a long time, you dig. Welcome to the Tailgate Party, Season 1, Episode 8. In this episode, I break down the upcoming SWAC matchup between the Southern University Jaguars and the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats in Daytona, Florida. Can Southern bounce back and get a crucial win on the road? All right, we talk about strategy, key players, and what Southern needs to do to dominate Bethune-Cookman. Plus, get insights, updates, and special analysis from yours truly, Coach 67 Sports TV, your number one home for Southern University football and HBCU sports coverage. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Southern University football content every week. Let's see who we got in the building. You know what I'm saying? All the way up to the top. Man, salute to your boy Jay. He got Go Jags. Uh, let's see. Motivation to be a millionaire. Salute to your family. He said, salute Coach 67, chat, Jaguar Nation, and HBCU family. He said they better bounce back if Graves wants to keep his job. And he got after that, he got Go Jags. Salute to the family, relax and calm reign. He said, salute Coach, chat, Jaguar Nation, and HBCU family. He said we need a win on Saturday. We definitely do. We definitely do. And after that, he put Go Jags. William, already in the chat. He said Bethune-Cookman by one. Hey, time gonna tell. Salute to Joseph David. He said, sup, Coach 67 Sports TV. Man, salute to your family. He said, 2 questions. Will Jalen Woods start? And 2, can the Jaguars score in the second half? From what I heard, he's supposed to start. But, I mean, my sources at this point are kind of like 50-50. So that could be hit or miss. I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, at one point, people I was talking to was batting 100. Not so much lately. So, I mean, it is what it is. He said, can the Jags score in the second half? Honestly, I think the strategy Joseph David needs to be really for Southern to get a nice size lead going into the second half. Because, we talked about the issues that Southern have. I mean, we know they're a terrible second half team. Strength and conditioning is not where it should be. And in addition to that, like you said, just in the second half, they struggled. But I mean, we know based on what we saw against Jackson State at home in the Boombox Classic, and I know we got a couple people like Adrian Cook and just a few people in general be telling me, man, coach, the Boombox Classic, that's not a real thing. It's more of a band thing. Well, I mean, if you got the Bayou Classic, you got the Circuit City Classic, you know how HBCU football is. You want something big. Even a couple years when Southern was playing against Tulane in New Orleans, it was the Big Easy Classic for like 2 years. So this is the way HBCUs are. If you could get a big time event where you're gonna draw people, you just stick Classic at the end of it, and boom, there you go. But I think after the Boombox Classic, I think it's clear that Ashton Strader is not the guy. I think he a serviceable backup at this point. But clearly, Jalen Woods needs to start. I mean, I don't know if he will start. From what I heard, he will start. I really didn't check out. I didn't check out the Coach Terrence Graves, the whole thing he does in terms of the press conference, whatever. I didn't check it out, but either way, uh, you know, I think Jalen Woods is the guy you really need to go with him if you stand. I mean, if you're gonna have a chance of beating Bethune-Cookman, and I think the biggest issue I pointed this out in the last couple live streams, whether it was my post-game reaction to the Boombox Classic or whether it was episode 7 of the Tailgate Party. Basically, my biggest issue with, I mean, not only Coach Graves and the staff, and in terms of, from an X's and O's standpoint, strategy, decision making, game management, clock management, play calling, all of those type of things. However, from a roster construction standpoint, I'm gonna just be truthful. I'm not gonna lie, the roster is not what I thought it would be. Just really in truth, really a lot of the starters, especially like if you look at the defensive line minus Kelby Givens, at times the other 3 defensive linemen has played like, substitute defensive linemen, to be truthful. They play like backups at times. In addition to that, the secondary who, got a lot of high praise in terms of preseason all SWAC, they really haven't lived up to the billing. So defensively, like the strong players on your defense at this point is Kelby Givens, Mike Jones Jr., and Vincent Page Jr. And they really kind of like the main guys really getting it done. Herman Bristol III is about the best in the secondary at this point. So your defense, especially in the second half, they look terrible. Offensively, Southern has had a lot of issues at the quarterback position. In terms of your offensive line, the right guard is struggling mightily. Hopefully this weekend, they do something to kind of scheme around his deficiencies, and hopefully he doesn't get as many holding calls and holding penalties against him. Also, in terms of your wide receivers, I think you have some potential at wide receiver, but you've had so much inconsistency at quarterback. And then not only that, but, Trey Holly is clearly that guy at running back. He's by far and away one of the top running backs in HBCU football. But the problem is the passing game has been so deficient this season. If I'm the opposing team, I'm just loading to stop Trey Holly, and Southern would be forced to beat me with the passing game. Not only that, Nathan Zimmer, in terms of, from a field goal standpoint, he did a good job in the Boombox Classic. He made a couple field goals, but the issue is the way your offense has been struggling, you definitely don't want to have to settle for field goals. You want touchdowns. You don't want field goals, especially when you have the ball in the red zone twice. One of those instances, you had the ball on the 3-yard line and you couldn't punch it in. So these are issues that Southern have been having. And, also while we are addressing special teams, don't get me wrong, a lot of, my subscribers have been pointing out how you definitely, Southern didn't want to kick the ball to Travis Terrell Jr. That's cool. But Nathan Zimmer has been like pooch kicking the entire season. So I'm certain every week you don't face a dynamic punt and kick returner like Travis Terrell Jr. for you to constantly kick it short, like week in and week out. So that is a huge issue in terms of kicking the ball off. Like you can't afford to give up that type of field position. If he had the leg strength necessary, he could just kick the ball into the end zone or even through the end zone, out the back of the end zone. So it's going to be, a need to do better in the kicking game. And in terms of punting, Kenny Lee Pham, he's not as bad as he was at the beginning of the season, but at the same token, not by no stretch of the imagination is he Mr. Goldenfoot in terms of Ruben Beauplant's, what he was his last season at Southern a few years ago. So at the end of the day, Southern is going to need to play complementary football in all three phases of the game. I think you start offensively with Jalen Woods. He has to be the starting quarterback. At this point, like I said, Ashton Strada, he was a step up and an improvement from Cameron McCoy. But like a couple other people said, me personally, it felt like the stage was too big for him when he played against Jackson State. Jackson State has a good defense, but he made some plays. He definitely made some plays in the first half, not so much in the second half. And in addition to that, like I said, the stage just looked too big for him. A few people told me they felt like he was just constantly looking for the big play, and he wasn't taking what the defense gave him. And like Adrian Crook pointed out, shout out to Adrian Crook, he played with a sped up clock from the perspective of, in many instances, it wasn't like a savage pass rush by Jackson State, and he was playing fast in terms of, prematurely stepping up in the pocket, like rushing to make plays when the pass rush wasn't that serious. So at the end of the day, there was too many deficiencies from him in terms of the quarterback play, and Southern definitely needs to go back to the drawing board. From what I was told behind the scenes, Jalen Woods should start Saturday. And in addition to that, part of the reason why they didn't start him against Jackson State was from a precautionary standpoint. I didn't mind him not starting him against Jackson State, but I would have preferred he be dressed because in the second half, it was obvious and it was apparent that Ashton Strada just wasn't getting the job done. And I think you needed to change the pace. Even though I think they're similar, I think clearly Jalen Woods, even though I think in terms of the way they play, I think they're similar. I think Jalen Woods, in terms of from a cerebral standpoint, between the ears, I think he's much smarter in terms of going through his reads and his progression than Ashton Strada was. So at the end of the day, we're going to see. But, if I'm Coach Terrence Graves, first and foremost, let's address the elephant in the room. Coach Terrence Graves, he on a hot seat, in my opinion, at this point. I don't think Roman Banks would actually pull a trigger and fire him. We talked about from an athletic standpoint in terms of, Southern not having the kind of money they want in terms of to get the potential coaches they wanted, like a Tennisberry, like a Trey Oliver, like whoever. But at the end of the day, like, you're going to alienate your fan base if Coach Terrence Graves keeps losing and the product on the field is what it's been. I mean, Southern has only won one game, and they struggled to beat Mississippi Valley. So at the end of the day, we know the SWAC West is the JV and the SWAC East is the varsity. But at the same token, if the East is so much weaker, then you should start to make a run at this point. So, let's go to the chat again. Um, Joseph Davis said, you're not beating Bethune-Cookman if you can't score over 30 points. That's facts. And I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I pointed this out. Last year Bethune-Cookman had some players that transferred from FBS programs in the state of Florida. So, it's gonna be interesting to see if their defense, if it's what I think it has the potential to be. Joseph Davis said Strada has potential, but he's not ready to be the full-time number one. Not at all. I'm not gonna lie. I think that's an excellent point, Joseph David. I think he's the kind of guy that, if you don't have footage on him and you're not prepared for him, and he comes into the game, he can give your offense a shot in the arm. But in terms of him being your full-time number one, your full-time starting quarterback, he's not that guy. He's not ready yet. Like I said, there were points in the game against Jackson State where the stage looked too big for him. He looked gun-shy at points. And in addition to that, like, he just kept looking for big plays. He played with a sped-up clock. But to me, he just didn't have the poise that you would need in a situation like that. And more importantly, he didn't make nearly enough plays in the second half to keep Jackson State's defense honest in terms of not really trying to focus on taking away the running game. And that's another thing, too. Like, Southern is deep at running back, but let's be honest. Trey Holly is a super stud. And at this point, he definitely needs to get at least 25 carries and maybe 5 touches in terms of throwing him a swing pass out the backfield, screen, whatever the case may be, so you can get him the ball in space. But I think if Jalen Woods is your starting quarterback, I think he can keep the defense honest in terms of, not have them load up to stop the running game, whether it's Trey Holly, whether it's Mike Franklin, whether it's Jason Gabriel, Barry Remo, Amarian Asbury, whoever. So it's going to be interesting to see, if Woods gets the start. But to me, it's no question in my mind that he should be your starting quarterback at this point. And basically, if I'm Coach Terrence Graves, my strategy would be, like I said, the defense struggling, special teams has been struggling, the offense is struggling in the second half, the team overall has struggled in the second half, especially from a strength and conditioning standpoint. So more than anything, you definitely, first thing you want to do is minimize the turnovers. You cannot turn the ball over against Bethune-Cookman and Daytona. That's the first thing. Second thing, Southern is one of the most penalized teams in the SWAC. When they played against Jackson State had 13 penalties for 111 yards. Southern had 13 penalties for 108 yards. So basically, the teams were pretty much a wash in terms of penalties. But if you Southern, you don't have a good enough team to get 13 penalties and play even with the opposing team from a penalty standpoint. If you Southern, those penalties needed to be 3 penalties for like 15 yards, and you let Jackson State get 13 penalties for 111 yards. Southern cannot afford to get that amount of penalties. They're not a good enough team to overcome that. And that was the crazy thing about Jackson State, especially in the second half. Your right guard constantly getting these holding penalties, and you constantly playing from behind the chains. From a down and distance standpoint, it constantly was 1st and 20, 1st and 15, getting all those false start penalties, getting all those holding penalties. Man, that was ridiculous. And then in addition to that, on the defensive side, some of those penalties kept Jackson State's drives alive, especially, the running into the punter, running into the kicker penalty that you got at the end of the first half where Jackson State was backed up into their own end zone, and that kept their drive going. And eventually, Jacoby Morgan ended up throwing a long touchdown to pretty much end the first half. So at the end of the day, Southern has to play a very clean game in terms of they need to minimize the penalties, minimize the turnovers. And in addition to that, they need to execute offensively much better in the passing game. And not only that, more importantly, they need to go into the second half with a nice size lead. They just can't have a small lead. They need to have a nice size lead. And you have a nice size lead in the second half. And hopefully you can use Trey Holly and Mike Franklin in your running game to help keep the defense off the field, because Jackson State had 74, 75 plays for over 500 yards. Southern gave up in back-to-back games against Fresno State and Jackson State. They gave up over 1,000 yards worth of offense. So you want to have a lead in the second half, because we know Southern is not a second half team. And in addition to that, you want to play with a lead, and you want to keep your defense on the sideline as much as possible in terms of keeping them rested, not allowing them to give up long drives like they did against North Carolina Central, like they gave up against Alabama State, like they gave up against Fresno State, like they gave up against Jackson State. You can't afford to let the opposing team go on these long 13, 14, 15 play drives and chew up the clock and keep the defense on the field with their hand on their hips. And the defense can help themselves also by not getting all those stupid penalties at the most inopportune times. So at the end of the day, these are all of the things that Southern need to do to be successful against Bethune-Cookman on Saturday. And I'm not going to lie, it's not a me call, because I'm not going to lie. If I was Roman Banks, I probably would have pulled the trigger already on Terrence Graves. I'm not a proponent of any coach getting fired, especially not a black coach. However, the product on the field at Southern University it's a terrible product. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, point blank, bottom line, period. This is unacceptable. Realistically, I can't remember Southern being this bad, probably going back to, over watching and being a diehard member of Jaguar Nation for over 40 years. I can't remember Southern being this bad since Stump Mitchell was the head coach, and prior to that in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, Southern needs to do a much better job in terms of playing a much cleaner game, minimizing the penalties, minimizing the turnovers, and they need to execute in terms of both the passing game and the running game. I would lean more on a running game, especially in the second half. However, whoever the quarterback is, hopefully it's Jalen Woods, can make enough plays in the passing game to keep the defense honest, so to keep them from loading up and stopping Trey Holly and Mike Franklin and whoever else you have at running back. Man, salute to Blackwater Bayou. Man, salute to your fam. Unfortunately, when you came to A.W. Mumford Stadium to watch Southern, came all the way from Houston to watch Southern play against Alabama State, for Southern to put on such a trash performance. Salute to Blackwater Bayou. Salute to his pops, who've been going to Southern University game for over 60 years. Man, salute to your family. Blackwater Bayou say salute, coach. And chat, man, salute to your fam. Blackwater Bayou say, coach, if we lose, do you think SU will keep Terrence Graves coaching? Honestly, I don't think Roman Banks is going to fire him. That's my personal opinion. However, I'm not going to lie. If it was a me call, yeah, he'd have been out of there by now. But even if you can't say, all right, well, hey, we going to give him another chance. Man, if they lose Saturday, man, I'm not going to lie. The following week for homecoming is going to be packed when PV come to AW. But if Southern loses one of those games or both of those games, whenever Southern comes back to the friendly confines of A.W. Mumford Stadium, P. Richardson Field, outside of diehard members of Jaguar Nation like myself, it's going to be a ghost town around A.W. Mumford Stadium. So it'll be in Coach Graves' best interest for them to win. But at the end of the day, I don't think Roman Banks is going to pull a trigger. From what I'm understanding, the finances is not what it should be. Even though Roman Banks has been doing a good job in terms of fundraisers and Gala on the Bluff and those type of things. Like, you still just finished paying Eric Dooley, not too long ago, the $300,000 per year that you owe him. So at the end of the day, like, the next coaching hire Southern University makes Really, not just from a football standpoint in the entire athletic department. It needs a factory reset, and you need to start from ground zero. I'm not gonna lie, Roman Banks was a good basketball coach, but in my personal opinion, he leaves a lot to be desired as an athletic director. Joseph Davis said it's a 50 to 70% chance of rain in Daytona on Saturday. And I'm not gonna lie, ordinarily I say, hey, if it rains, you still won't get Trey Holly some touches. But in that scenario, you might want to get Mike Franklin more touches in that scenario since, he the bigger, stronger. Even though he has a little wiggle to him, he the bigger, stronger back. You might want to get him more touches in that scenario. Your boy Jay say if Graves loses this game, he's gone on Sunday, not Monday, but Sunday. I hope so, but at the end of the day, I don't know if Banks gonna pull a trigger on it. And then at that point, it should be clear that Fred McNair should be interim head coach, in my opinion. Salute to Brian Harris. He said Bethune-Cookman putting up 30-plus points. Can't remember that the last time Southern scored 20-plus. Trey Holly not being in every down is grounds for pink slips for the entire staff. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest with you. When you don't get me wrong, Brian Harris. Trey Holly is a dog. I mean, he's a super stud as a running back. But at the same token, he hadn't played really since his freshman year at LSU. He sat out his entire sophomore season. He just showed up, in August. So even at this point, from a conditioning standpoint, I don't think his stamina is where it should be. So that's why you just can't feed him 40 carries a game and give him the rock play in and play out. And not only that, like I played with coaches that believed in. I mean, if you got a dog, if you got a superstar player, they believed in getting them as many touches as possible. However, they also believed in rotating running backs and keeping fresh backs in the game. So you want to have a healthy balance between the two. You definitely want to get in, I say, at least 25 carries and maybe 5 touches out the backfield. But you also want to get Mike Franklin and Jason Gabriel and Barry Remo, maybe even Amarian Asbury, because I haven't seen him this season. You want to get all the running backs touches. You want to keep rotating the running backs. You want to keep the first running back in the game. You don't want to run Trey Holly in the ground. And you definitely don't want him getting injured because, if you ride him too hard, you might ride him into the ground. I've literally seen coaches, and, I was a huge fan of Friday Night Lights. I done seen coaches have like a Booby Miles type back and try to run him in the ground, or even an Earl Campbell type back and just run him in the ground. Just think about it. Right now, the last time I saw Earl Campbell, like on Inside the NFL, like years ago, he was walking on 2 canes, and this was years and years and years ago. So at this point, I'm certainly in a wheelchair, but at the end of the day, like you want to ride him hard, but you don't want to completely run him in the ground. Blackwater Bayou say, I heard Terrence Graves only a 2-year contract with a possible 1-year extension. I mean, at this point, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest. If it was me, he would have been gone already. Your boy Jay says Southern is 7-0 versus Bethune-Cookman all time. If we lose to Bethune-Cookman by 10-plus points, I don't see how you allow Graves and staff back on campus. I agree with you 100%. Well, I'm not going to say Graves and staff. I'm going to just say Graves because at the end of the day, like, you still need to have a staff. Now, if you talking about after this season moving forward, because, I mean, if it was me, if you had to actually pull a trigger and get rid of Terrence Graves, I say cool. I think at that point, Fred McNair becomes your interim head coach. But you can't give it the entire staff. You still need somebody to coach the rest of the season. You know what I'm saying? HBCU band talk. He said, hell, Wildcats, man, salute to you. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. I mean, if I was Terrence Graves, that would be my strategy. It's in his best interest that Southern wins on Saturday. No two ways about it. Like I say, just to kind of give you a recap in terms of from a strategic standpoint, what they should be doing. They definitely need to minimize the turnovers and penalties. You cannot turn the ball over. And in addition to that, not only that, but one thing I didn't point out, like the defense has struggled all season, but the defense gonna have to take the ball away too. Like, the defense need to get some takeaways also. You know what I'm saying? You need to take the ball away. And more than anything, like, you can't give up these long drives the way you gave up against North Carolina Central, the way you gave up against Alabama State, the way you gave up against Jackson State, Fresno State. You can't give up these long drives, and especially in the second half. Like, the defense is living on the field. You can see they're clearly fatigued, hand on hips. And not only that, Nathan Zimmer, he did a better job in terms of, he made both field goals. He made the field goals. But not only that, but he needs to do a better job kicking the ball off deep. He do a better job kicking the ball deep. Kenny Lee fam, he needs to, even though he hasn't been playing as bad as he played against North Carolina Central with the 7-yard shank, he's going to need to play better also. And not only that, but Southern needs to play complementary football. And I think offensively, your offense has struggled in the second half. Your whole team has struggled in the second half. However, what Southern is going to need to do, they're going to need to play complementary football in all three phases of the game. But more than anything, your offense is going to need to protect the other two phases of the game. They're going to need to go into the second half with a sizable lead. And not only that, you're going to need to, maximize everything offensively, especially in terms of the running game, so you can keep your defense on the sideline as much as possible, keep them fresh, so they're not on the field for extended periods of the time, looking like they're finna die of exhaustion. And not only that, from a quarterback position, hopefully Jalen Woods starts on Saturday. However, from the quarterback position, your quarterback and your wide receivers are going to need to make enough plays to keep the defense honest, so they don't just load up to stop Trey Holly and load up to stop the running game. Because at the end of the day, like, you cannot, just rely solely on Trey Holly to get all of these long runs, at least like a 70-yard run every week. You just can't rely on that. And even with that being said, even with him playing as well as he played, if you take away those long runs, Southern rushing attack is not what people think it should be. At least not what I thought it would be when the season started. But you need to, especially in the second half, like, you need to be able to sustain drives, and you need to be able to keep away to a certain degree to keep your defense off the field. Your boy JC, people saying all year Graves wasn't Banks' choice. Banks couldn't get who he wanted, so he kind of just settled. Yeah, but from my standpoint, I'm not gonna lie, I think I'd have kept the interim tag on him. I know he didn't have the kind of finances he want, but even with that being said, like, you still, I don't know. I guess in that scenario, you really can't hedge your bets. But at the same token, like, I was never sold on Terrence Graves. And, a few of the subscribers pointed out how even when he was a defensive coordinator at Southern defense wasn't good under him to begin with, And HBCU Bang Talk say, welcome to the beach. He said, feel free to stop by the tailgate by the lake. Man, salute to your fam. Your boy Jay said, Bethune-Cookman put up 30 points on Alabama State. We might get smoked. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think if Southern gets blown out Bethune-Cookman, yeah, you definitely got to get rid of Graves. Graves got to go at that point. Blackwater Bayou said, Coach, to be honest, we not winning another game until November. Coaching is that bad. Oh, I'm not going to lie. I talk about how bad the roster is in terms of some of the starters, in my opinion, are really backups, and they're questionable starters at best, really substitute players overall. However, the coaching staff is trash. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just being brutally honest. Like, from a decision-making standpoint, from a game management standpoint, from a clock management standpoint, in terms of, some of the plays that's been called offensively in terms of even Henry Miller, like he really got exposed this season, especially in that Jackson State game in terms of going to that soft cover 3 at the end of the first half. Like, just Southern as a coaching staff overall, like, they left a lot to be desired. And realistically, if it was just Mark Frederick, cool, but you got a lot of questionable talent that really doesn't translate over to, winning SWAC championships. And then in addition to that, like, your coaching is terrible. I mean, like I said, Terrence Gracie leaves a lot to be desired as the head coach. Really as a defensive coordinator when he was a defensive coordinator at Southern. But like I said, his decision-making, his game management, his clock management, just overall, I mean, from an X and O standpoint, the strategy they've been using, man, hey, left a lot to be desired, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Your boy Jay said, if Southern starts off 1-5, that's got to be the worst start since Stump Mitchell days. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I can't remember Southern starting out this bad since Stump Mitchell, to be truthful. And like I said, at that point, then it's time to go to Fred McNair as the interim head coach. But truthfully speaking, even with Fred McNair and Jalen Woods and Trey Holly, as bad as this roster is, I think even, with those 3 components in place and clicking on all cylinders, I don't think it could make up for how bad this roster is from top to bottom. You know what I'm saying? Ball Talk 360, salute to you. He said, y'all should put up points against Bethune. Their defense is terrible. Wow. Blackwater Bayou said, yup. What's interesting is Eric Dooley and Terrence Graves was on the coaching staff when Pete Richardson was fired in 2009. That's an excellent point, Blackwater Bayou. That's an excellent point and very accurate. You know what I'm saying? Joseph Davis said, what's Frederick doing? What's Frederick doing now to justify his salary? Well, you got to realize, even though Fred McNair is the play caller, when you have this co-offensive coordinator situation, what it means is, in all actuality, is that the previous offensive coordinator was so trash that he's no longer calling plays. However, since his system is in place, you need him there to translate the new play caller's plays to his system. I've seen it in the NFL. I remember one year, well, it was the Redskins back then, but the Washington Commanders, they had a transition in offensive coordinator. So what they did was they brought in a new offensive coordinator. They promoted one, either or, and he called the plays, but the old offensive coordinator had to translate the plays to his system so the players could execute it on the field. So that's the reason why when you hear, even though Fred McNair is calling the plays, you hear him called the co-offensive coordinator. That's all it really means. You translating the plays to the old offensive coordinator system. So that's what it means. So yeah. So in that context, he's no longer the play caller. However, it's still his offensive system in place, and you need somebody to translate those plays to his system. Salute to my brother Desmond Allen. Salute to you, bro. He said, we'll be fine Saturday. We'll win. It will be close, but we will win this game. Man, I hope so. But I'm going to be honest with you, Desmond Allen. Like, I'm not from St. Louis, Missouri, but you got to show me, based on what I've seen this season from Southern, at one point I was cautiously optimistic because I'm not going to lie, in real life, see the guy. I'm the type of guy that sees the glass being half full as opposed to half empty. But Southern University has not given me no hope, hasn't given me any hope to believe that they're going to win on Saturday. So that's why I don't know if you noticed, I ain't picking no score. I'm not saying who's going to win, whatever, because I'm not going to lie. Like, I just don't have that kind of confidence in this Southern team. I don't have this kind of confidence in the roster. I don't have this kind of confidence, more importantly, in the coaching staff. Because, I mean, realistically, if you was devoid of deficient of talent, I mean, it's obvious on the field the way they've been playing. But in terms of the coaching staff, man, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'm not confident in this coaching staff in terms of getting the job done. You know what I'm saying? Your boy JC, we went to 5 overtimes with an extremely bad Bethune-Cookman in month of last year, they might beat us by 20 plus on Saturday in Daytona. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I think part of the reason why that game was so close was because Xavier ZT set, like, he slept walked through the first 3 quarters of the game, and Terrence Graves waited so late to pull the trigger on him and put Jalen Woods in. And once Jalen Woods came in, the offense started moving the ball and they start scoring. But at that point, Bethune-Cookman offense woke up and it kind of was like back and forth. But you're right, though. In all actuality, that team from last year is considerably better than this team this year, even though you got a lot of same players on the defensive side of the ball. You got a lot of same players, but the defensive line made a huge difference when you had Davin Cotton and you had Willie Miles and you had Darius Harry, you had Jelani Davis. Like, those players on the front end made a difference. So, Ball Talk 360 said Cameron. He said Cam Ransom got hurt in the game against Bama State. Oh, see, I'm gonna be honest with you. That makes a huge difference in terms of, on the Bethune-Cookman side of things. So, I mean, yeah, that as a Southern fan, that makes me more confident. However, even with that being said, I'm still not sold on this Southern team. Desmond Allen said, your boy Jay, he said the flip side to it is Alabama State puts 50 plus on Bethune. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, hey. But I'm not gonna lie though. Bama State been putting up numbers. So it's gonna be interesting to see, how that game between Jackson State and Alabama State looks on Saturday. But we definitely gonna talk about that on Thursday on my brother channel, Jared 11 Green with HBCU Fanatics. So y'all definitely be certain to come through on Thursday, between 7 o'clock and 8:15, probably about 7:30. HBCU Fanatics on my brother Jared 11 Green channel. You know what I'm saying? And your boy J said Desmond Allen, you might be right. Yeah. Blackwater Bayou said Desmond Allen. SU don't have Alabama State offense. Not by a long shot. Yeah, that's an excellent point, Blackwater Bayou. Desmond Allen said, plus your boy J, Alabama State took starters out the second half of the game. That's why Bethune-Cookman scored so much. All right. And Desmond Allen said, at Blackwater Bayou, Southern versus Alabama State game was closer than Alabama State versus Bethune-Cookman. Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, those turnovers, they kind of fueled the fire in terms of it kind of, once Alabama State got the long run and then Southern turned the ball over, they kick a field goal. Southern turned the ball over again, they scored another touchdown. So that's why I say it's gonna be imperative. You already struggle in the second half, but the penalties and the turnovers have to be at an absolute minimum. I mean, I don't think you could play a game where you get absolutely no penalties and no turnovers. But whatever that number is, you need to minimize it as much as possible, so you can give yourself a chance of being successful. So at the end of the day, I mean, am I confident in the Southern team? Just to be honest, no. But hey, I've seen Pete Richardson take over a senior heavy team that, basically with Gerald Kimball and Marino Chasm players. And the next year he won a SWAC championship. And I seen Stuart Mitchell get fired and Dawson Odom's going to do, some good stuff with that same team. So, you never know at the end of the day if they do axe Terrence Graves. You never know what Fred McNair is the interim head coach, what he could potentially do. But, time will tell, you know what I'm saying? Desmond Allen said, if you look at stats when we played Alabama State, that outcome doesn't match. Yeah, I agree with you. And, of course, like I said, those turnovers, it definitely, added fuel to the fire and gave Alabama State a lot of momentum, you know what I'm saying? Your boy Jay said if Jalen Woods plays, keep the playbook away from Fredericks. Yeah, if he should start, and like I said, as long as Jalen Woods is not running the ball, as long as he's doing a good job protecting himself, I think he'll be fine. But I definitely don't want him to end up like J.C. Lewis. That's my major concern because I'm gonna be honest with you. I know some people might say I'm wrong. I'd rather Jalen Woods to be healthy and for Southern to lose than him to play and get hurt and Southern win. I mean, maybe I'm wrong for that perspective, but I don't want him to be the next J.C. Lewis, the next tour, whatever. Teldrin Leathers, man, salute to my brother, Teldrin Leathers. And he said, what up, coach, man? Salute to your fam. I'm blessed and highly favored, you know what I'm saying? Desmond Allen said, plus, we played the toughest schedule in the conference thus far. Yeah, now that's big facts. I mean, we played Alabama State, we played Jackson State, played Fresno State, but I'm not gonna lie, the way they look against Valley, whoo! And from what I'm seeing, Valley is not that good. And North Carolina Central took us behind the woodshed too. So at the end of the day, like, hey, Ball Talk 366. Southern has talent. Nobody foreseen Woods going down. Your defense has stepped back. Not stepped back a little bit, stepped back considerably. He said, but you have enough weapons on offense to be very competitive the rest of the way. Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment. But, Woods definitely going to have to, play out his mind from a quarterback standpoint. Because I'm not going to lie, at this point, especially if Strada is your starter, man, I'm just trying to take away the run game, and that's going to be it. But from a talent standpoint, I mean, Southern is loaded at the running back position. Now, don't get me wrong. Trey Holly, adds considerable talent. I mean, your running back room in terms of value and quality, with the addition of Trey Holly, it goes up so much. But even aside from Trey Holly, Southern has some good running backs in terms of, like I said, Barry Remo, Jason Gabriel, Mike Franklin. My issue is I haven't seen some of the other running backs like, Marion Asbury and Princeton Cahey. If those guys can't cut it, that's cool. I want to at least see what they could do, though. You know what I'm saying? Desmond Allen said all those teams ranked, plus Fresno State #1 in their conference. Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. But the Warner kid, Kurt Warner's son, I don't think he's as good as people think he is. But yeah, you're right. They're the best in their conference right now because they're getting ready to move from the Mountain West next year. Your boy Jay said if we win on Saturday, we going on a run because PV and FAMU aren't good at all. But that's a big if. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That's a big if. Of course, everybody talking about how terrible FAMU is. They're saying that, James Cozy definitely gonna get fired at the end of the season. FAMU is a complete dumpster fire, more so than Southern. But right now, if you look at PV, PV got more wins than anybody on the west side of the SWAC. So I would just write PV off. You know what I'm saying? Ball Talk 360 say, Coach, you would not play another defense like Jackson State and Alabama State this year. But the thing about it, I'm not gonna lie. Ball Talk 360, I'm not really moved by Alabama State's defense. Alabama State defense is not as good as it once was, truthfully speaking. And I think more than anything, I don't think it was the fact that Alabama State's defense is that good. I think those turnovers, by Cameron McCoy, with the 2 fumbles, him throwing the interception into the end zone, like those turnovers, especially in the second half, hurt. So realistically, like Desmond Allen pointed out, I think that's a fair assessment from the perspective of like the score in terms of point differential between Alabama State and Southern. the margin is way wider than how close the game really was, because got to realize at one point, you know, Southern was winning 7-6, and then Southern's defense give up a 40-some yard run, and then they go up 13-7. Then Southern fumbles the ball. They kick a field goal. Southern fumble the ball again. They score a touchdown. And after that point, it kind of spiraled out of control. You know what I'm saying? Spartan 35, man, salute to you. He said, what's up, coach? He said, I think Southern will win the West. PV is winning, but they aren't good. PV is the worst 4-2 team in the FCS. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people are talking about how bad PV is. I got to see for homecoming. If Southern could beat PV for homecoming, then maybe they are as bad as people say. But I'm not gonna lie. I hate to say it, you know. Right now, if I had to favor somebody in that homecoming game, in my opinion, I think Prairie View is a slight favorite. I know a lot of Jaguar Nation gonna disagree, but I'm not gonna lie. Southern as a team is not moving me. Man, salute to Isaiah Wilson. He said, PV Nation checking in. Oh, yeah, hey, I plan on, if I get with PV versus everybody, you know what I'm saying? We can link up. He said 3-0, baby. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be honest with you. People talking about, PV overrated and PV not that good. Hey, I'm not even going to lie. If I had to pick between PV and Southern right now for homecoming, hate to say it, I think PV a slight favorite in my opinion. He said, be careful about writing off those Panthers, coach. Not me. I just said that I think for homecoming, if I was making a bet line, I would make Prairie View the favorite. Don't tell that to me, Isaiah Wilson. Tell that to my chat. You got to tell that to them. Because I'm not going to lie. I mean, I hate to sound like a Debbie Downer, because ordinarily I'm going to see the guy being a glass half full as opposed to half empty. But Southern as a team, they have not given me that confidence that I can say. Because, I've had people tell me, man, coach, you're a Southern homer. You pick Southern every time. And we seeing right now that that's not true, because I'm not picking Southern Saturday and I'm not picking Southern for homecoming. Now, if they prove me wrong, then, hey, so be it. But I don't mind being wrong. But, the product I'm seeing on the field right now, I'm not optimistic. Donnie Page says Southern should be good enough to go on a run in this portion of the season. I also think McNair likes Strouder better at QB. Oh, I'm not going to lie. I mean, he could like Strouder better. However, based on what I saw against Jackson State and Fresno State, I mean, Strouder got to prove me otherwise. Because, I mean, against Jackson State, just sitting in the stands and just watching him play, it felt like the stage was too big for him. And like I said, Adrian Cook pointed this out also. Like, in his head, he played with a sped up clock. And in addition to that, in the second half, he just didn't make enough plays. You know what I'm saying? Isaiah Wilson said, you will see how bad PV is come the 18th. Like, again, Isaiah Wilson, don't tell that to me. Tell that to the chat. I said I picked PV for homecoming. So, I mean, I don't I don't know how much more you want from me. I'm being honest. So, he said number one defense in the conference right now is PV. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Isaiah Wilson. Y'all ain't played Alabama State and Jackson State either. So, I mean, yeah. He said, Coach, we got a tailgate going at SU on the 18th. Pull up. Oh, yeah. Hey, man. Hey, I'm coming over, Isaiah Wilson. I'm going to be on a y'all super early because my home is like, 15 minutes away from campus. I'm definitely pulling up. Man, salute to you. He said, I'm talking to the chat. Hello. All right. Blackwater Bayou said, no disrespect to anyone in the chat, but we are looking at the same defense. Our defense is trash. We can't stop them. I'm not going to lie. That's a phenomenal point, Blackwater Bayou. Man, this is not the same run defense. Even though last year's run defense, it wasn't great. I think Southern was better at rushing the pass, with Kelby Givens and then teams doubling Kelby Givens, and then Darius Harry, and then you had Davin Cotton and Willie Miles. But truthfully speaking, man, this is not the same defense. I'm not gonna lie. That boy 67, I can't remember his name. He don't move me at all. Zach Yasina said he a senior. He do stupid stuff. He don't make enough plays. I'm not gonna lie. It's a considerable drop off from Davin Cotton and Willie Miles to that boy 67 is Zach Yasine. I mean, it's a huge drop off. And not only that, I know he at Kent State. I don't know what type of NIL money Kent State gave him, but I'm not gonna lie. Southern misses Jelani Davis being on the opposite end, on the opposite of Kelby Givens. Because if you put Jelani Davis on one side and Kelby Givens on the other side, you got two bookends at defensive end that can rush the passer. Right now, I'm not gonna lie. If I'm teams, I'm doubling. Hell, I'm damn near tripling. I'm damn near tripling Kelby Givens. I'm chipping on him. I'm doing everything to him. Man, I ain't worried about the rest of them boys. To me, I hit the sound mean as hell. Man, all three of them other defensive linemen are a line factor to me. Hey, and I'm just being honest, you know what I'm saying? Smart 35 say PV barely beat Alcorn and Northwestern State. He said two horrific teams. They barely bested Texas Southern too. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest with you. I thought Texas Southern was gonna win that game, but hey, at the end of the day, you know, you got a touchdown last play of the game. I don't care if you win every game by one, you still winning. So I really can't. Even though I know Southern had a considerably harder schedule, hey, if I had to win every game by one, I'll take that. You know what I'm saying? Ball Talk 360 says Spartan 35. I agree. He said from a talent standpoint, I pick Southern or Texas Southern to win the West. He said PV still has to play Alabama State, Alabama A&M, and FAMU. He said all on the road, I believe. Woo! I'm not gonna lie, hey, that's murderer's row right there. Your boy Jay said if we lose to Bethune-Cookman and Prairie View on homecoming, get security for grades to make it back to the locker room. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. You ain't lying, your boy Jay. That's a phenomenal point. Hey, bro, if you lose to Bethune and they don't ask him then, and he's still hanging around, and then guess what? You turn around and you lose to Prairie View for homecoming. Woo! I'm not gonna lie. Hey, somebody might want off in terms of grades that night, and I'm being dead serious. Nathaniel Frank, man, salute to you. He said, I'm with your coach. Southern doesn't just, they just don't have it this year. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the thing about it. I mean, it's bad enough that your coaching staff is trash, but from a talent standpoint, like this team does not have the same type of talent that Southern has had years past. I mean, if they moonwalk into the SWAC championship game, I hate to say it, because I'm not gonna lie. Let's look at it from a glass half full perspective. Glass half full perspective, you go 50-50 the rest of the way, Terrence Graves get fired. But let's look at it from a glass half full perspective. If Southern run the table and they end up going to a SWAC championship game, I'm gonna just keep it a buck. Texas State still gonna beat the brakes off you again in Jackson. So at the end of the day, it's kind of a lose-lose situation from my perspective. You know what I'm saying? Spark 35 said Airball Talk 360 right. He said they are definitely going to lose all three. He said all three teams you mentioned from the East. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The East at this point is the varsity. The West is the JV. There's no two ways about it. Donnie Page said you're correct, Coach. They have 2 weeks to prepare for the rest of the season, and PV is no slouch. He said I was disappointed that PV didn't beat Northwestern State. Northwestern State bad. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I say this all the time. I cannot stand when SWAC teams lose to Southern Conference teams, and the fact that Northwestern State beat Alcorn State pissed me off. And the fact that you got a couple Alcorn State players that celebrate with their teammate from their JC team or whatever. I'm like, man, hey, bro, that made PV look. I mean, that made Alcorn State. They made Alcorn State look so bad to me, bro. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know from a talent standpoint, you know, you got, you know, a lot of FBS schools, poaching the HBCU ranks for talent, but there's no way you should have this, drastic drop off in talent. He said that game should not have been close. Not at all, bro. Northwestern is trash, like complete trash. And the fact that Prairie View barely beat them, Prairie View barely beat Northwestern, and then on top of that, Alcorn State loses to Northwestern. Man, I'm not gonna lie, that makes the SWAC West look. Hell, I say JV look like a damn middle school team at this point. Hell, so if the SWAC East is the varsity, hell, hell, the SWAC West like one of my old middle school teams. You know what I'm saying? Man. Your boy Jay said, it is fair to say Graves barely won with Dooley players last year. Yeah. I mean, Southern won a lot of close games last year. A lot of close games. He said most of Dooley players are gone, and the fall off is crazy. Facts. Big facts. And realistically, some of the Dooley holdovers that you got, they were backups for a reason. And the irony is some of those guys starters now, which is terrible. You know what I'm saying? Spartan 35 say on the bright side, Southern lost to all top 5 HBCU teams: North Carolina Central, Jackson State, and Alabama State. He said Southern hasn't lost to any chump teams. That's true. Isaiah Wilson said PV doesn't play FAMU this year. All right. Ball Talk 366. Thanks, Coach, for the correction, Isaiah. Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if Southern could go to Daytona and bounce back and get the win. Honestly, for the past handful of weeks, I've been cautiously optimistic. At this point, that optimism is going out the window. I'm not really picking the score. I'm not really picking the team to win. But if I was a betting man, truthfully speaking, I would put my money on Bethune-Cookman, just to be honest. You know what I'm saying? It's really a home game for them. It's a home game for them. Southern got to go on the road, go to Daytona. Southern has struggled literally in all 3 phases of the game. Kenny Lee Pham is a punter. I mean, just think about it. Boy had a 7-yard punt against North Carolina Central. Terrible. Then on top of that, Nathan Zimmer finally, made a couple field goals against Jackson State. But from a kickoff standpoint, like he's not kicking the ball into the end zone like I would like. Even at least to the 1, to the 2, to the 3. And like I said, I know they was trying to keep the ball away from Travis Terrell Jr. and Jackson State's punt and kick returners, but he's been doing that every week the entire season, every week he's played. Also, defense is giving up a lot of long drives this season to North Carolina Central, to Alabama State, to Fresno State, to Jackson State. And Southern has, been a heavily penalized team. They've turned the ball over too much. And from a strength conditioning standpoint, they don't have any stamina. That's why they're so bad. And it's such a drop-off in the second half. Because I'm not going to lie. Whether we talking about Jackson State or Alabama State, like, they were solid in the first half of those games. Even really against North Carolina Central. And they faded and they gassed out terribly in the second half of all of those games. So at the end of the day, like, Southern is going to need to go into the second half with a considerable lead. And, at the quarterback position, whoever the quarterback, whether it's Strada or Woods, going to have to step up big time, you know what I'm saying? But, I'm getting ready to shut down this live stream. I still got paperwork to catch up on. The stools at my school had a half a day today, but I already know they're going to be rocking and rolling on tomorrow. So, I got to get ready for that. Donnie Page says Southern's football issue is actually an administrative one. I agree with you 100%. He said Banks can pick basketball coaches, but he sucks at picking football coaches. And yeah, I know a lot of people have been pointing out how, from a monetary standpoint, like Southern does not have the money that they would like to have. But at the same token, this is an excellent point from the perspective of, Roman Banks. I think he was a very good basketball coach. And I think when it comes to picking coaches for basketball, both on the men's and women's side, he does a very good job in that regard. But when it comes to football, which Southern is a football school, I mean, even though, Southern has won, multiple commissioner cups over the years, and at points Southern has excelled in all sports. Southern is more of a football school, in my opinion, than a basketball school. And for, you know, football to be your revenue sport and your money maker, and for you to be just struggling like a dog, and basketball and a small budget sports are excelling, I think that's a poor reflection on him as an athletic director. Ball Talk 360 said Bethune want to get them wide receivers in space. He said them boys fast. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. In the bad part about it, Ball Talk 360 is Southern secondary has struggled the entire season. Even with a healthy Horatio Johnson and Trillin James and Eli West, I think Horatio Johnson has kind of been the bright spot. But even with him, like Southern secondary has been bad. The pass rush has kind of been non-existent minus Kelby Givens. So, if I'm the opposing team, especially in pass rush situations, or even just situations where he could get one-on-one matchups, like Kelby Givens is gonna get penetration. He's gonna get a tackle for loss. So I'm doubling him, I'm chipping him every play. And I hate to say it, them three substitute defensive linemen, they would have to beat me. And not only that, but Southern cannot stop a nosebleed in terms of the running game. Like, the defensive line is like a Pop-Tart. It's soft in the middle. It's a considerable drop-off from last year when you had Willie Miles and Davin Cotton and Darius Harry as your other three defensive linemen. The three defensive linemen they have this year are a huge drop-off. Like I say, you sure could use Jelani Davis from Kent State right now as we speak. Your boy JC coming out of the bye week versus Jackson State, we saw the same players starting. I'm convinced Graves and staff talk about nothing in meetings. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be honest with you. From what I'm seeing, a lot of these starters are, if they'd have been on teams in the 90s, like these guys will be backups. They wouldn't even be starters. And if these guys are the best of what you got, that means your backups are not even playable. So that's the reason why I say from a roster standpoint, like Southern's roster is trash. That's why I say that. So your starters are not starters. Your starters are really backups. And your backups are not even playable. So that's the reason why some of those guys still starting. You know what I'm saying? Spark 35 said Bethune-Cookman's run defense is terrible. He said if Trey Holly doesn't gain 200 yards against them, it would be a shame. Yeah, but you don't run him in the ground. Man, salute to the brother, Big Reg, host of Big Boy Talk. He said salute. Man, salute to your fam. Joseph Davis said thanks, Cool 67 Sports TV. Your boy Jay said Holly should run for 250 yards versus Bethune-Cookman, but his snap count is weird, so don't expect it. Well, I'm not gonna lie, that's what I'm saying. He came into the season, when the season started, he wasn't in shape. Don't get me wrong, he got a long run against North Carolina Central. He got a long run against Jackson State. He got a dynamic 1-yard touchdown run against Mississippi Valley and Fresno State. But, I think he is on a snap count. So I think that's why at certain points they really count on Mike Franklin to do the heavy lifting, to be the big, strong, physical power back. You know what I'm saying? Taylor Gatson, salute. He said Spartan. He said he got to get more than 11 carries. Yeah, without question. Big facts. But like I say, from a stamina standpoint, I don't know if not only him, but damn near most of your team from a conditioning standpoint, they're not where they should be. But he needs 20 touches. But you right, Taylor Gatson. Joseph Davis said, is Bethune-Cookman's field grass or turf? He said weather would be a factor. We'll need to run the football. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I expect to see Mike Franklin a lot. Your boy J.C. Johnson and Graves are like a Band-Aid on a leaking wall, just doing the best they can. Spark 35 said, at T. Gasson, he said, right, he needs at least 20 carries every game. Big facts. I've been saying that for the longest, but like I say, from what I'm understanding, his strength conditioning, especially from a conditioning standpoint, is still not where it should be. I mean, we already knew this was an audition year. Next year, he's going to be playing, for PWI Power 5. There's an NIL bag waiting for him as soon as he hits the transfer portal. He one of the top backs in all the HBCU football. But from a conditioning standpoint, like, his conditioning got to get up to par. I mean, yeah, you got a few long runs on the course of the season, but like y'all said, he don't get the kind of touches he needs. I mean, don't get me wrong, Southern's running back room is deep, but I think you could kind of give him the carries he needs to get, and at the same token, keep rotating fresh running backs. I think you could do both things simultaneously. But that's it for this live stream. Man, I appreciate everybody that came through and that showed some love. Please like, share, subscribe. I am less than 150 subscribers away from that magical 1,000 subscriber mark. So if you've not done so already, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, subscribe. Also on Thursday around 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on my brother's channel, Jerry Lovin Green, HBCU Fanatics, where we not only going to talk about Southern and Bethune-Cookman, but we're going to talk about Alabama State, Jackson State, and we're going to talk about all the HBCU football action for this upcoming weekend in terms of, all the SWAC teams, all the MEAC teams, SIAC, CIAA. We're going to talk about it all. I appreciate each and every one of you. Appreciate all of my subscribers. I appreciate everybody that come through and, rock with the channel. Come check out the content, especially all the individuals that, watch the post-game reactions. If you've not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal night. I'm going to have more clips from the Boombox Classic dropping every day. So stay locked into the channel. I'm going to catch y'all on the rebound. Peace and blessings, and go Jags. You dig?